Hello and welcome to the North American Guitar, not at the North American Guitar showroom. We are at Kostal HQ with the one and only Mr. Jason Kostal. I paused there because I thought you might introduce yourself, but
I was just thinking this is much classier than the TNA HQ. You know?
It is. Jason, I can't believe that in all the years we've worked together, we've never actually done a talking guitar interview.
Yeah, this is the first one.
We've done body shapes and we've talked about new lines and stuff. We've never actually asked you questions about how you got into the guitar.
You want to know the real stuff.
Yeah. So to just for our viewers, which I'm sure everybody would love to know, so what were your first steps into getting into the guitar world?
Basically it came about really as just inquisitive hobby type thing. You know, I was going to graduate school, I was getting a master's in business, and had transitioned from the military to going to school, and so my days were a lot less filled, and I found myself with a lot of free time. And at the time I had a pretty large guitar collection, but I didn't really grasp why one guitar would be worth $500 and one would be worth $15,000. You know, most of it was just what this person said it's worth a lot of money, and I couldn't really identify and differentiate between those things. It was all brand specific to me. And I thought, well, maybe if I learned how to build guitars, I would better understand the collection that I have and why some guitars were worth a lot of money and some were worth less. So I was fortunate that I was living in Georgia at the time, and Kent Everett was right in the Atlanta area, and was able to reach out to him and ultimately have an opportunity to learn really the foundation of guitar building through him. And my intent at the time, honestly, was not to pursue a career in this. That if you had said to me, you're going to become a luthier, I would have laughed. It just was not even in my mind. I had no prior woodworking experience other than building a little Pinewood Derby car when I was a Cub Scout as a kid. And the very first day that I was at Kent's, he said something along the lines of like, when you start to do this, you're going to be bit by the bug and your whole life is going to change. And that is exactly what happened. I found myself fascinated with the tools and the process. I've always been kind of process oriented, and so learning how to build a guitar felt very comfortable to me. And I enjoyed looking at the different techniques and procedures and thinking, how could I do it differently, or what different things could I do? And it just seemed to really tap into all these different parts of my brain that were not being utilized at the time. And it also tapped into that creative side, which I don't have in ways that a lot of other people do. I've been a musician, I've been around music, but I do struggle to be creative. It's not something that comes natural to me. I almost have to kind of force it and fight it, and then eventually it gets there. So for whatever reason, this thing kind of tapped into that process-driven mindset, the analytical and science-based side, but there was a creative side as well.
And so just to jump back, so you mentioned you're a musician, and I mean, I've heard you play guitar. You're an amazing guitar player.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it.
Do you feel, first of all, I want to know a little bit more about when you first started playing guitar and how you got into that, because I know that you studied under some incredible people. But before we go into that, how do you feel that being such an established musician has helped your building? Or do you feel it's helped your building?
Oh, definitely. I think the biggest thing it does is it allows me to have a discussion with the client, with the musician. Everybody that I interact with plays guitar differently, at a different level. They have different styles of music that they listen to. And all of those things correlate into the playing experience and what they want to get out of the guitar, what they perceive the guitar is able to do. And I think if you're watching as strictly a guitar builder, you're not really taking in information that you can use. You're just kind of, okay, I'm listening to them play guitar, and I'm going to go build the guitar that I always build. And to me, the benefit to a handmade guitar is tailoring that instrument to the individual, to their needs and what they hope to get out of that experience. And the only way I can do that is really by understanding how they're going to utilize the guitar and what's important to them. And most often that's done in a conversation, either email or telephonically. Sometimes it's done in person where I can watch them play, but the things that I like to know are, what style of music do they primarily play and listen to? What guitars are they playing right now, and what do they like about them, and what things do they feel like they could do better, and what do they hope to get out of my guitar? And I think that gives me the foundation to start to take the information they're giving me and then work that in my head and use experience and understanding of the guitar to correlate that into the process and the build itself. What's been really interesting to me is interacting with some of the professional musicians and finding out that they really don't understand their own playing style and their own technique. And we'll have this conversation. They'll say, well, I need the guitar to be built this way because this is how I play. And I say, no, you don't. And they're like, what? Yeah, I do. I said, well, no, I just watched you play 6 songs and this is what you did instead. And then they're like, nobody's ever pointed that out to me before. And so it's funny because even with the people who are like, this is what I need, sometimes that's not exactly what they need. Or
they're really tailoring sound.
Yeah, and or sometimes their understanding of the technique doesn't necessarily mean they understand what the guitar is doing in that technique, and so I think those are the things that I bring to the table that maybe a lot of other people don't have, which is I'm a player first and foremost, and I can listen to them play, listen to them discuss how they play it, and start to understand, okay, if I'm going to do the same thing, what do I need the guitar to do? And it also means that I can evaluate my own guitars. I'm not reliant on building a guitar, handing it to someone else and saying, give me feedback. Now I want feedback because it helps me improve and grow, but I can evaluate the guitar. And ultimately, in my mind, when I got started with this, and what drives me to this day is, if I can build a guitar that I feel I would be privileged to play on stage and perform in front of people, I can probably find other people that feel the same way. And so my reference for did I do a good job, is this a guitar that I would want to play myself?
Right.
And I think it works. I think people respect that and they appreciate it, and it allows us to have these conversations that both of us walk away feeling confident in what's going to be created. Because part of that conversational loop is giving the closing the loop and giving the feedback and saying, here's what I heard you say, and what that means to me is this is how I have to build the guitar. And when they go, man, he gets it, then we walk away and they feel like, okay, I have a pretty good certainty that I'm going to be happy with this guitar in the end, because ultimately we're building something that doesn't exist at the time, and there's always a little anxiety, because it's a high dollar item. And unlike other luxury goods where you go test drive a car and you're like, I just want it in a different color, this is totally different. And so there's a lot of faith and there's a lot of trust that the clients put in me. And the reason that you have, some of the really big name builders out there is they've shown time and time again that they can meet the expectations or exceed them consistently.
You must be quite, knowing you and knowing how much of a perfectionist you are, that must have been pretty tough going up against yourself every time you were testing an instrument, but that's how you get the best.
It's,
best sound, and if you're the person
trying
to prove is this a stand up to me, or would I play this on stage?
Right.
Then
it's interesting because it's a slippery slope in what your standards are, right? When I do this, the things that I will find in my guitars that are imperfections or things where I think to myself, like, you got close there, but you could have, done it a little bit better, are things that nobody ever notices. And you have to be careful because in the beginning, there'd be something that just wasn't perfect and it would keep me up nights. And then you show the guitar to somebody and it's like, you're fixated on it and they don't even notice it. So it's very easy to say to yourself, well, that doesn't matter anymore, and I can lower that bar a little bit because I'm making work for myself that I shouldn't be making. But the reality is that I'm going to hold myself to the highest standard, and what that means to me is that I'm probably always going to exceed other people's standard because my expectation of myself is much higher than what most people would expect of me.
And also it's like when you're performing on stage, I'm sure you've had it when you've been performing and you've come off and you might have not quite got the bridge right or something like that, and then you've gone off and you've gone, oh God, I didn't perform that well enough, and it's like, that was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
best performance ever.
As long as you are your own quality control, which is great. So just jumping back a little bit, so I know that you were a captain in the military, is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. So do you feel that, I'm trying to sort of get to sort of how you work and your processes, do you feel that the military background has helped you? Like I know we were talking earlier on about how you're very organised, meticulously organised, and you know where everything is. I could say, where is this drill? And you would say, yeah.
I 100% believe that background is the foundation of who I am as a person. It has nothing to do with being a builder. The things that I learned about personal accountability, responsibility, integrity are deeply ingrained in me. And the biggest thing that I learned as a leader in that organization was that there are procedures, there are methods that we use that we replicate over and over and over again. We train over and over again so that in high stress environments, you're kind of on muscle memory instead of relying on your body to kind of figure all that stuff out. Building guitars is not quite as stressful as being downrange and having people shoot at you, but it has its own stress. Yeah. And if you care about your work, you create a lot more stress just because you want everything to be good. So what I've found is that by being organized and having a clean shop and an organized shop, I do clean, organized work. And by having everything in its place, there's a certain level of kind of simplicity brought into the chaotic environment. So I know where tools are at all times. I know, what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and I think that just makes me feel more comfortable in my environment, and it allows me to focus my mental energy on the things that matter instead of having 50% of my brain constantly thinking, well, where's the screwdriver or whatever, and it works for me. And but I think it's bigger than that. It's not just the day-to-day techniques. It's how I handle myself. This idea that my brand is really me and who I am as a person, and so I have to handle myself in a way that is right for the client. And I'm going to handle mistakes or things that go wrong in a way that lets them walk away saying that was a good experience, no matter what the outcome was. And that can be difficult because, you care about your work or financially driven. I mean, I'm obviously not doing this for free. And so sometimes you have to make decisions where the right decision for you is not the right decision for the client. And you have to choose the right decision for the client because ultimately they're the ones that took this journey with you. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. So I've had on occasion to make really tough decisions that were kind of painful for me, but they were the right thing to do. And you walk away and chalk it up as a lesson learned. How do I make sure this doesn't happen again in the future? But at the end of the day, every day I can look myself in the mirror and say, today I handled myself the way that I want to be, remembered as a person, as a builder. And I think people respect that. They may not always agree with it, but they know, they're going to walk away saying, okay, that went well.
Consistency, again, comes back to consistency. So, and just fast forwarding from the military, what was it like studying under Irving, and how do you feel that time has sort of helped you with your career moving forward?
It was an amazing experience. Really, what I view that experience as being is I studied with Kent Everett and I learned the foundations of guitar learning. I attended Roberto Venn and I learned a different way to build guitars, but still kind of the foundation. Mm-hmm. And then I taught there for a while. And teaching allows you to learn through your own process, but also everybody else's mistakes and things like that. And so I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on how to make a guitar. Not a great guitar, but a guitar. Mm-hmm. I truly believe everybody out there builds a really good guitar. But what starts to differentiate people is kind of that last 1%, which is mostly attention to detail. And what Irvin really taught me was that good enough does not count. in this kind of an environment. Everything needs to be done right, and if you have to redo it 25 times to get it right, that's what you do. The other thing that he really helped me with is going back to my view on my own creativity. I struggle with that. I honestly got every single day when I'm doing an end graft or a design idea, I think, what if this is my last good idea? You know,
I can't believe that.
Oh, it's every day. And there are people like, I equate like Michi Matsuda to Bob Dylan, where like Bob Dylan could write like 300 songs in a day and they were all hits. I'd be the guy that's like, it's been 5 years, I came up with one song, I'm really proud of it, but I just don't know if there's another song in it. No, it's just how my brain works. The building process is very comfortable to me. And every time I get to something that's mildly creative, I start to procrastinate a little bit. Like, I'll have a guitar and it's like ready for the end graft, and it's like, I think today I'm going to clean the shop. The shop looks like it needs to be clean, you know? And so what Irvin really allowed me to do is he had a series of little exercises that he would do with me because he could tell that I was struggling. And every one of them helped me push my own boundaries and limits, try things I'd never tried before. And the biggest thing he taught me was don't force something. You know, I got into this thing where I would come up with a good idea, and then I was like, now I have to use it. But that good idea may not fit on the guitar you're working on the time. And I would try so hard to get it to work for that guitar, and he'd say, just put it aside. And all of a sudden you realize 3 guitars later, it's a perfect fit. Yeah. So it's not that it wasn't a good idea, it's just that you can't force it. And so I've learned to allow my creative kind of process to be a little bit more fluid and not be like stuck in any one direction or whatever. And he really helped with that. It was a difficult time for me though. You know, coming again from the military, the corporate world.
That's right, because you then were in the corporate world for 2 years after.
And I'm a pretty type A guy. I've toned it down a lot in recent years because I now work in the music industry. But I'm driven, and I'm used to being around people that are like, here's the mission, here's the task, go do it. And Irvin was not like that. And he and I, you know, there were times where we struggled and we had to kind of find a way through it. But I can say to this day, he is solely responsible for the foundation that has allowed me to create the guitars that I create. Had I not gone and studied with him, I would not be here. Yeah. We would not even be having this conversation. He taught me a lot. He gave me an incredible gift. To this day, I view him as not only a mentor, but like a great friend and a father figure. Yeah. And I really am honored to have been a part of that legacy.
What a legacy too.
It's incredible. And you know, he has definitely shown me that it's important to give back to the community as well. Like if all we do is say, wow, look at me, I do amazing things, it probably feels good for a little while, but you realize like you know, I didn't get here on my own. I got here because there were people on the way willing to help me out. So it's important, I think, to be willing to help other people out.
So many questions coming. So many questions. What's saying that?
Yeah.
So, is it true that when you left Owens, you had is it 60 builds?
Yeah, I had almost 60 builds on order. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is it's interesting.
That's insane.
Yeah, you know.
How do you even approach something? I mean, that's quite incredible.
It's interesting. At the time, if you had asked me, like, you know, oh, what's your wait list or anything else, I was very proud of that. Mostly because I was starting out, and what it showed me is I conceptually, at least, you know, theoretically have work for the next couple years. And people value what I'm doing enough to commit to it. Mm-hmm. So I was very proud of that fact. And it was kind of this like badge of honor, like, hey, I'm kind of new in the industry, but I already have all these orders. The reality for me now is having a long wait list is a little bit difficult for me to kind of really be comfortable with. And a lot of that is because, you know, I take a deposit, it's a refundable deposit, but I essentially have kind of taken these small little loans from people, and until I've finished the guitar, I haven't really earned that money. Mm-hmm. So the longer your queue, the more you've kind of secured all this, you know, these different loans from people, and it makes me feel a little unsettled.
Very honest of you to say
Yeah,
that.
and I would like to see my build queue reduce. I'm working really hard at that. When I started out, I was building about 8 guitars a year.
We put 13 orders for you last year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So no, but so it's I started doing like 8 to 10 a year, and then and that was what the original queue was based on.
Yeah.
And then I started building more. I changed my lifestyle around after different things that have happened, and I take a little bit more time for myself. But people think, oh, well, it's because he's taking time off. That's why the queue's so long. The queue was long before that. I've doubled my output as a result of taking more time for myself. So I found that work-life balance. I'm working a lot harder, a lot more efficient. But I want to reduce the queue, and I think in my mind, 1 to 2 years feels comfortable. It lets me know that I have work, and it lets me know that I don't need to feel real anxious about where's the next guitar coming from. But it's not so far out that people are losing interest, or something like that. You always have to be cognizant of the fact that my demographic is not 20-year-old, new players. It's typically people in their mid-40s to mid-60s. And when you say, I have a wait list of 5-6 years, some of them I may not even be playing guitar by the time you deliver that guitar. So,
but that's why you have agents like us that represent you, and we can guarantee those build slots. We're committing 8 to 10 guitars from you.
Yeah.
So again, just jumping back to what you were saying about when you left Irving's, he was a huge part of your life and a huge mentor to you. How does it feel now to have phenomenal luthiers like Ted Astrand, who you were a mentor to him, and he's obviously a great friend of both of ours, and he's gone on to be incredibly popular. Very different style of instruments, but sonically, tonally, you can hear a lot of similarities, which obviously is your influence. What was that like? How does that feel having somebody come to you in the same light that you looked at Irving?
Yeah.
To you. What was your time with Ted in the shop?
Okay.
Sorry.
No. So how it feels is 2 different ways. When he came to me, my initial feeling is I'm not why would you want to study with me? What do I have to offer? And I felt that way. I now, after him having come here, I'm very proud of him. And I have to always preface this by saying Ted would be where he is right now if our paths never crossed. He is an exceptional builder. He's one of the finest builders on the planet, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I just, what he was looking for is kind of the same thing I was seeking. The reason I learned from Kent and from Roberto Venn and from Irvin is there's so many different ways to do things. And the more I can study these different varieties and variations, the better I am to decide what's right for me. And Ted was building an exceptional guitar before he ever set foot in my shop. What he wanted was a different approach, kind of a modern take on things. Maybe, and what's interesting is, he came to me for some creative ideas, and I think I had 3 ideas, and I shared all 3 with them, and things like interrupted back strips and stuff like that. And he's run with it and does amazing work. His sense of design, clean lines,
the lines,
and just elegant craftsmanship. So I look at it, and yes, if I want to be kind of pretentious, I can say I'm very proud of him, and he's really making me proud. But I just don't feel like I had that much to do with it. I think I, in some ways, maybe got his foot in the door because it was at a time when people were really taking notice of what I was doing.
Yeah.
So by being able to really kind of share his name with people, the same people that were interested in what I'm doing became interested in his. But he has to back it up. If I say, and look at this guy, and he can't do the work, it doesn't really matter. And Ted has made his own path. But every time I see his guitars, I can't help but feel very proud, and excited for him and his journey and everything else. And I just think helping,
a wonderful human being,
incredibly
talented,
and helping people just genuinely feels good. I just don't think you know, I say it all the time, this is not a competitive industry, and other builders would disagree with me. Yeah, there's 7 billion people on the planet, and you know, probably like 1/10 of them play guitar. And I'm looking for, you know, this tiny group of people each year, and if I can find those, I can make a living and be happy. And I don't need to take them from this builder, and I don't need to knock that guy down to try to get to the people that are interested in. You know, people are going to find me because they appreciate what I'm doing. And so if you approach it from that mindset, then helping people doesn't feel like I'm growing my future competition. It feels like you're growing people that are all going to walk on this journey with me, and we're going to lift each other up and help each other, and honestly share ideas with one another. You know, Ted does stuff that is different from how I do things, and I may take one of those ideas one day and build a better guitar because of him. You know, that's kind of that interesting thing where people that, when I got started, I put on this pedestal and I was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing, are the same people that now call me and are like, hey, I have this problem, like, how would you fix it? And that
it
feels
is a beautiful
really
industry
good.
in that way. I mean, we did a great interview with Stephen in Santa Cruz, and he was talking about Tom Sands and talking about his rosettes, and it is lovely. And there's always a little bit of competition, I think, in any industry, and that's healthy. Yeah. But you're right, it's not. It definitely feels like it's a very, you know, everybody's together. A real community, isn't it?
It's, you know, I joke about it, but it's like ice cream flavors, right? I mean, if I like Rocky Road, you like mint chocolate chip. Neither one of us are wrong. It's a personal preference, and so when somebody likes my guitar over somebody else's, or doesn't like my guitar over somebody else's, I can't take it personally. They're expressing their own personal opinion, and as a player, there's a lot of guitars that I like and a lot of guitars I don't like, and that doesn't mean any of them are good or bad. It's just how I feel about them.
And I've been seeing recently on Facebook, you've been working with, is it Bigfoot Guitars?
Karen? Yeah, Karen Singh.
Karen, yeah. They look beautiful.
They're incredible.
And he looks like he's a new guy building in India.
He's in New Delhi, and Karen and I, we connected for the first time at the Berlin Guitar Show, the Holy Grail Guitar Show in Berlin 2 years ago, and just being honest, I had never heard of him before, had no idea who he was, and I walked into the lobby of the hotel and he ran up to me and was like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. I have 2 guitars here, will you take a look at them? I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at them. And went up to his room, and you know, we sat down, and I really looked at him, and I kind of said to him, like, do you want me to be nice or do you want me to be honest? You know, and he said, I want honest feedback. And his guitars were good. They weren't great. They had little things here and there. And, you know, I gave him a critique as honestly as I could, and I gave recommendations for how to improve it. And the main thing that I saw at the time that was like immediately available that we could fix right away was the setup was done very poorly, in my opinion. And he was getting ready to do his first international guitar show, and I was like, these don't play well. So I brought all my equipment from my room, and we sat in his hotel room, you know, most of the night, and basically just got the setup on these 2 guitars done perfectly. Both guitars sold. And the people that played them were like, this is the best playing guitar I've ever played. And he felt good, you know, and was like, man, look at what I just accomplished. I felt good because I was like, man, I did this little thing and it helped him. But there was still this list of, you know, stuff that needed to be done. And usually when you give people constructive feedback like that, they kind of take it and go, great, thanks, I appreciate it. If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Karen went home, and, you know, fast forward 2 years later, I go to the Holy Grail Guitar Show again in Berlin, and every single facet of those guitars that I had critiqued, he had done to an incredible degree.
Wow.
And I've never really met somebody that has done that before, so it really said a lot to me about his character and his sincere desire to be good at this. And so we started talking, and he was like, you know, I would love to come spend some time with you. You know, and people ask that all the time, and it's, while I want to be a part of that, the reality is it really shuts down productivity.
Absolutely, I can imagine.
And with Karan, I said, you know what, if you are willing to pay the money to get to Arizona, you can come spend as much time with me as you want. And he came over, and we spent, you know, a couple weeks going over every facet of the guitar, and really kind of figuring out how to dial in what he was doing to a much higher degree. And he's doing it. He's back home. He's built some incredible guitars. In my opinion, hugely undervalued. He's in India, and there's not a huge perception in our guitar community that that's where luxury guitars are coming out of. It's just like with China, you know, there's this perception of like, okay, mass produced, whatever. He is building incredible instruments, and he's doing it in a place that he's fighting this uphill battle.
Yeah.
And so I've been really trying hard to let people know about his stuff, because it's commensurate with everything being made all over the globe from all of the other top builders out there. And I really do think that as his name catches on, the prices are going to go up, the demand's going to go up, and I'm excited to see where his trajectory takes him. And again, did I really have a hand in it? Not really. You know, I maybe adjusted.
Well, but there's little things. There's little things. Even taking the time to go into a complete stranger's hotel room night for a show and help someone set up their guitar. That's a really wonderful thing. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story.
I appreciate that. I guess the way that I view it is that it's kind of like you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
I can share what I know, but if the person's not willing to do the work, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And Karan does the work every day, and it's just, so that part is exciting for me, because once again, you think to yourself, 3 years from now, we're going to be having a very different conversation.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about him in the same way that we talk about Ted and some of these other up-and-coming builders, where they kind of came out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden the community across the entire globe is like, wow, look at what this guy's doing.
We're seeing that with Isaac Young. It's great.
Isaac, again, there's, I don't know what it is. There's something in the water. You know? Joel showed. I mean, there's
Stephen.
There are people out there where like guitar number 2 looks like they've been doing this for 40 years. And
it's been a very exciting year for us, because we've taken on a whole new roster of talent, new young builders, and some of the guitars that have been coming through. Ryan Gerber's guitar, and they are just. And when you're as fanatic about guitars as we are, you know, every single one that comes in, you're like, this is amazing.
It's funny because I don't know where I fit. You know, like because in my mind I'm still a young up and coming builder. And it's because when I think of the old builders, and I hate to use the word old, but when I think of like the builders we revere, it's the Irvin Samajas, the Jeff Traugotts, Linda Manns, or like all these people have been doing this since the 60s and 70s. And so that in my mind is like, there's that group. And then I recently, Paul Himmler did an article on like, I think it was 8 luthiers, 8 up and coming or young luthiers you should know about. And one of them was Michi Matsuda. And I'm like, Michi's been doing this 15 years longer than I have. So if he's a new one, then I'm definitely new. But then you have these new builders that are kind of coming out of nowhere, and none of them are new. I mean, like, Isaac was with Kathy for years,
and his Santa Cruz and Stephen.
So I mean, like, exactly. So it's like they're new to us, but they're all incredible. But what's exciting about it is they make me a better builder, because this is where the competition is, and it's not competition in like I hope you fail and I succeed. It's we all want to be the best we can be, and just like Michi does something. And you can look at it. I can look at Michi's work and go, I can go home and execute that. I have the hand skills to do what just was done. What I don't have is that side of my brain that creates that out of nothing. So we forget that innovation side is part of the creativity. So it's the same with these newer builders. Like, they are coming up with ideas where I look at it and it's like, once you see it, you're like, well, yeah, of course. Why don't we all do that? But none of us thought of it. And that's what's so cool about it, is that they raise the bar. And then because I want to stay competitive in this industry, I have to raise the bar. And we play off each other. And that's why, again, do I think they're all going to like take all of my business? Probably not. But if they do, then they earned it, But like the reality is I look at their work and I'm like, that's the benchmark. That's what people are being drawn to, and that's what people respect and revere. So I have to either get on board and do equal or better work, or get the hell out of the way so that they can kind of keep going.
Remember that you're in such a short period of time, you have gone on. You are now looked at as being one of the finest leaders on the planet, and so to them, you're their inspiration.
Very
also,
much so.
You know, which is an amazing thing. I mean, that's something that I wanted just to quickly jump onto. Is obviously we're living in a world that's so driven by social media and Instagram and Facebook and. I don't know, is it people on Twitter anymore? I don't know if they are, but the way you approach social media is I love the way you approach your social media because it's very humble and you have you always have a lot of third party doing the shouting for you, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And the way you approach build is always you're including either the dealer or you're including the client in the post you're doing. More often than not, when you do a post on social media, it's very emotional, which is...
I literally spent a lot of time crying in front of the computer.
Because honestly,
it's
an amazing thing. Yeah. I think that hopefully this is a side of things. I'm looking there for the camera, it's up there. But I hope this is a side that the world will see about you. This is a man that was, a captain in the military, had a horrific accident, which we haven't even spoken about, a car accident, you nearly died. And you still committed to you came out of that, you committed to your build. I mean, you were telling me you rolled down the stairs from a wheelchair and had a spare wheelchair at the bottom of your stairs, and you had an assistant then who was helping you, and you were dictating on how to do things. So you were building, and that was literally a week or two when you were out of hospital, something crazy like that. Yeah. And I think that is phenomenal, and I think that comes across in how your brand is perceived and how you portray yourself on social media, which is, I think, the old expression, honesty is the best policy. It speaks volumes about your character, which is an amazing thing. And I think that comes across in your builds.
I build a guitar, and I think I have to stay cognizant of that fact. I'm not saving the world. I'm not curing cancer. I'm building a guitar, and that's what I've chosen for my life's path right now. But at the end of it, there will be people that what they have to say about me is, well, he built a great guitar, and that's fine. But that's not what I care about. What I care about is, was he a good person? Did he live a good life? And did he make the world better off than when he came into it? And I think, what I try to convey in my posts, one is I try not to inundate people with guitar stuff. Not everybody that I interact with is a guitar person. So if every day I'm like, another guitar, eventually people are like, I can't stand this guy anymore, I gotta back off. So I think when you tell a story and you make people feel connected to it, what makes me excited is when someone's like, I'm not a guitar person, but that guitar is beautiful. Or I'm not a guitar guy, but man, the story you just told about this wood or this interaction with the client, is a wonderful experience. That's how you know you're connecting with people. And in my opinion, in this day and age, we all need a lot more of that. We're getting more and more disconnected, and we see the results of that. And I think if I can tie people back into that humanity side of it and use music as it's intended, as this universal language that everybody all over the world can kind of connect through, then I'm doing my little part. And I think it's important because my little part before was to go somewhere with a rifle and do harm to people. And I grasped that was a necessary part, but I'm in some ways I'm kind of making amends for that now. And I'm trying to touch people on that human level and say, how do I make the world a better place? And the guitar is just the object that I'm doing it through. You do it through music. I do it with the guitar. Other people do it in different ways, and I think it's just important to kind of bring that into it. And I feel really good about my ability to do that right now.
Yeah, so. It's thank you for that. It is an amazingly emotional experience buying an instrument. I tell this to all of our clients, don't rush that decision, especially with the bespoke process.
Yeah.
Really don't rush the decision. Take your time when we work with them, because some people have been known to get on the teenage couch and talk about something and cry.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen a number of times. We had it the other day. I was playing the guitar, and he when we went back downstairs to sort of see how it was going on, he actually had welled up. True story. Last thing I wanted to ask you about is what about the next sort of, do you have any plans? I know that that work-life balance, you've really kind of sorted that now. Apart from sort of building.
Yeah, it's just maintaining it. You know, the challenge for me is the efficiency-oriented side of me always wants to see how many more can I do,
Mm-hmm.
but then the quality control side of me is like, well, how do you do it without losing the quality? And I think I've reached kind of max output, and I actually feel like I'm going to tone it back a little bit, because what happens, you know, I started out building very linear, one guitar at a time, start to finish, and then you finish that guitar, you start the next one. And you realize a lot of your time is spent setting up a tool or a process. So then you think, well, I could probably do 2 at a time and only do the setup part once. And maybe 3, 4, you know, you start to do this production mentality. And I think for everybody it's a little different. Mm-hmm. What I've found for me is 4 is kind of the max throughput. If I do more than that, I start to like, which, you know, headstock does this one go to? And fewer than that, I feel like, well, I could probably be a little bit more efficient with my time. But it's not, this still isn't a production mentality. You know, this isn't an assembly line and everything's done the same. What I'm doing is kind of what I think a lot of people use CNC for, which is there are some procedures that just have to be done. Mm. And they don't necessarily require a high level of skill, but they do have to be replicable and they have to be methodical. So by building in batches, you save time where it doesn't really matter, but that frees up time for the stuff that does matter. When I'm voicing the guitar, when I'm, you know, doing things that I want to put time and energy into, I feel like I have this reserve of time now to do it the way that I want to. And I like that. And I like the balance that I have right now. I lost sight of that for a long time because I got into this to create the lifestyle that I desire. And I got into this to free up time and, you know, not have to answer to somebody. And all these things that, you know, when you hear about people starting a business, that's why I got into it.
Yeah.
But then you start your business, and if you care, you don't have time.
Yeah.
And you answer to the clients. And suddenly you're like, wow, all these things that I said were why I was doing this, I'm not doing it. Mm. And I realized, as a result of the life that I've lived, I don't know what my quality of life is going to be when I'm 60. You know, I've put my body through an awful lot. Most of it's man-made now. And the reality is that if I say to myself, I'm going to put all these dreams off until I retire, I don't know if I'm going to be physically able to do those things or in a situation where I can enjoy those things. So I've chosen to live now. And the result for me is I work very hard when I'm in the shop. I'm very focused. I'm oriented on all the tasks at hand. But then I take time off to go do the things that I want to do. And that's
so important.
Well, what's happened is I come back from those experiences refreshed and excited to be back in the shop. But then I never get burned out because while I'm in the shop, I'm like, hey, in a couple weeks, I'm going to go do this fun thing or whatever. Mm. And so I've really enjoyed having that balance. And I want to maintain that. And I have to fight to maintain it because it's very easy every day to say, oh, I'm just going to go back to working an 18-hour day. And I can do that in a heartbeat without even thinking about it. But then other things start to suffer, your personal relationships, your life, you know. And so I just think for me right now, the path forward is to continue to build the best guitar that I can build and be kind of an ambassador to our community, to the music as a whole, and live a life that other people want to replicate and are like, man, I want to be around that person because he's a good person, and have that be my legacy. You know, in the same way that Irvin has his legacy of all these apprentices, you know, I hope at the end of mine they're like, man, you know, what a good life the guy lived, and you know, I want to replicate that. And if I can do that, and oh, by the way, I built some good guitars along the way.
And the guitar in
NIM.
Yeah. Is it MIM?
They just call it the MIM around here because we're kind of lazy. But, the Musical Instrument Museum is the largest museum of its kind in the world.
Second largest attraction in
Arizona.
Yeah, to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, Grand Canyon's number one still, but we're working on beating it. But it's, it's a fascinating place. Every country in the entire world has an exhibit except for North Korea and the Maldives.
We're back, and we got cut off by the compressor.
That's how you know we're in a real shop.
It's so funny. I was doing an interview with you remember Emma Stevens? She
she's incredible. Yeah.
Such a wonderful girl, a great performer. We were doing an interview, and as we're doing an interview, Kenji is doing a setup, and all you can hear is this. And I was on the camera, and I went, "Yeah, this is a guitar shop."
Yes.
Well, we're in Kostal HQ.
Yeah.
So it is amazing that you are literally, you walk into MIM, and bang, there you are. And you see, I loved it earlier on when we were having some lunch. You were saying that you get friends who are taking selfies with the guitar.
It's like, probably a weekly basis. I get some random Facebook messages like, "Look what I saw today," and it's an amazing thing. My guitar side, the museum is incredible. It's the way that it's set up it's an interactive, self-guided tour. So you walk into this museum with headphones on, and the headphones have sensors. So as you walk up to the exhibit, there's a screen. So let's say we're looking at Thailand. The exhibit will have maybe 15 instruments from Thailand, and there'll be a video playing where every one of those instruments is being played separately, and you can hear the style of music, how it's used. And what's cool about that is, like, especially in Asia, when you're following like the Silk Road, the trade routes, you'll see the same instrument in 8 different countries, but the way it's played and the way it's used is completely different. So for people that have never been to these countries, you're seeing an oud in Russia and in Ukraine and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I mean, this is incredible. And it's just a fascinating experience. I mean, it's funny because every time I have a client come in, they want to go there. And some of them,
I'm just thinking, I wish I had more time.
Like some, I've walked through it in 45 minutes, usually because they're so overwhelmed. They're like, it's too much to take in. And then I have some people where it's like, we've been here all day, and they're like, can I just spend the night? Like, can you come back and get me tomorrow? And it has a music venue that's one of the most beautiful music venues I've ever been in. And it's just it's a great thing. The fact that it's here in Phoenix is amazing. And I feel very fortunate to have my guitar on exhibit there. The one they have right now is on permanent display. It's the 3rd one that they've had. And it just feels really good. It's nice to not be dead. Normally you have to be dead in order to have something in the museum. So I'm really excited that they wanted it while I could still enjoy it. But for me, because it's a permanent exhibit, it lets me know that my legacy as a guitar builder is going to continue long after I'm gone. And that's a pretty powerful thing. When I was growing up as a kid, I never expected the Kostal name to be a household name in any community or industry. In the military, I was like, wow, people are only going to know my name if something goes really wrong and I cause like an international incident. So this is something where, I never set out to do this. I build guitars because I enjoy it, and it touches a piece of me emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, whatever, that makes me feel really good. And I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for the notoriety. Those are all things that, like, on a day-to-day basis, you're like, some of it's really nice, some of it I could do without. But to do something, and in my case, create something with my own 2 hands that is on display for people to admire, it feels incredible. And it feels really good. I've been able to take my family a couple times, and because when I got started, they all thought I was crazy. I left a really good paying corporate job as an executive for a Fortune 100 company, and they thought like, oh, our son's finally doing what he was meant to do. And then I was like, I'm going to stop doing this, and I'm going to go be a guitar builder. It was like that record skipped, like everybody kind of looked up. And my mom has been my biggest supporter my whole life, but there was a period of time where she was like, I feel like you need to set an end date and set these goals. And if you haven't achieved those goals by this end date,
What's your beat?
you might want to go back into the corporate world and wear that suit and tie again. So it's great now because when they come to visit, they want to bring their friends and like, this is Jason's work, and it just makes me feel like I did what I set out to do. You know, I said I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it well, and now I have something quantifiable to point to that just makes me feel good, and so.
Jason, it is just such an honour to be here and to sat and having what I think is the first official TNAG Talking Guitar interview with Jason.
Well, it's I really appreciate it. You guys have been, we've been a part of this team together since TNAG's inception, and I've watched the company really start, where all of us were like kind of anxiously waiting to see how it pans out.
It's moved and changed,
and it's morphed and grown, and the reality is that you guys are literally my biggest fans and my biggest supporters, and it means so much to me. I am very selective in who I work with and who I feel is going to be a good ambassador to myself and my brand. And one of the things that's very difficult for people to understand is that I'm essentially giving you the authority to act on my behalf. And the only way I can do that is if I think you're going to make the same decisions that I would make. Because with the time difference, we can't always call each other in the middle of the night and say, hey, I have to deal with this issue right now. And I have to stand behind you in whatever decisions you make, and you do the same for me. And it's this kind of team effort that's made it grow. But to be a part of that and watch, when it started, watch when you took over, and this journey that everybody was just like, what's going to happen? Where you are right now is a very special place. The way that I view you selling guitars is very proactive. And it's not proactive in terms of I want to make a sale. It's proactive in, just like I want to build the best guitar for my clients, you want to get the best guitar into their hands.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean it's going to be my guitar or Michael Greenfield's. It's going to be whatever's right for them. And you continuously maintain your personal integrity in really finding the right tool for that person to enjoy music. And both of us, I think, agree that at the end of the day, I love selling guitars, don't get me wrong. I love it. But what I care about is, do we perpetuate music? And does that person playing guitar enjoy it? And I don't care if they're doing it on a $150 K that was passed down from their grandparents,
Absolutely.
or on, some stupidly expensive guitar. What I care is, do they enjoy the music? And you consistently approach it from the same thing. And so people buy from you with the confidence that what they're buying is the right choice. And I know this is not where the interview
and I was about to say,
go.
I didn't even pay you for this.
But it's important to acknowledge, because
thank you very much.
Because I think, a lot of times people ask me, well, you have all these orders, why do you need dealers? And it's like, well, the reality is that you reach people that are different than I do, and you can find the people that are right for me and my guitars, and ultimately, like, you help me grow my brand and my reputation. And I really do appreciate it. And there's just not that many people out there that do it to the level that you do. We as builders, we pay a commission to these dealers to represent us. And there are dealers out there that do nothing to earn it. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but you guys, TNAG goes out there and works really hard to sell the guitar and have it be the right guitar for the right person, so that when they get it, they don't have this buyer's remorse of like, holy cow, I just paid more than an automobile for this guitar and now I don't want it. That's the most horrible thing in the world. And
really,
and you guys do a great job of that. And I just think it's important, as we're all navigating these waters, to know that, like, who are the good people out there? Who can I turn to and feel good about that journey? And I do appreciate everything you guys do.
I truly appreciate that, Jason. I really do. It's an honour to be the kind of the person in the middle for the customer, finding them what they're looking for, but also to be the representing your brand and the other brands that you represent. It really is. It's a joy. To order a guitar from you and then come into the showroom and you've worked with a client and you open that guitar up, that is, I can't even describe how magical that feels. And to know that you're a part of the birth of that. Right. Wow, we could be here all night.
Okay.
I should say that it is such, and I'm going to give you a hug. It's such an honour to represent your work, and yeah, I'm so glad to have finally got out to Kostal HQ. So, got emotional. So, for more information on the finest hand-built luthier instruments, then please do subscribe to this channel. But for more information on the phenomenal Mr. Jason Kostal, then get in touch.